Okay, we're going to talk about the domains of language. And language itself is kind of a dimensional and complex subject. So we've broken it up into 3 parts or domains to simplify it a little bit. And it's a lot of information, so I made a little handout for you to follow along with. And the reason we look at the domains is it gives us some information about the parts of language that your kid is doing awesome at, where they've mastered it and they're doing great. But it also gives us information about maybe the aspects of language that they could maybe use a little bit more help with, and that's where I come into play. So the first domain is called form, and that's the structure and organization that gives sounds and words and sentences meaning. Then we have content, which is the actual meaning of the words and sentences. Content is how we understand what people are saying to us. And it also allows us to express our own thoughts and convey what we're thinking or feeling. And then the last domain is called use. And it deals with how we use language functionally. So how we say what we're trying to communicate. And then the 3 domains are broken into 5 different components. The first 3 are within the form domain. So the first one is called phonology. And that's just a set of rules that we use to make sounds and then to put those sounds together. The second one is morphology. And that's where we combine the smallest unit of meaning, which is called morphemes. So we take those morphemes and we organize those into words. So I guess you could say morphology is the rules we use to structure words. Then we have syntax, which is similar to morphology, but it's the rules we use to create sentences. So syntax is how we structure sentences through the organizational rules within our language. Then we move on to content, and the component of content is called semantics. And another word for semantics is lexicon, which is just kind of a fancy word for our inner vocabulary network. So it's basically how we store the vocabulary that we have. So when we learn a new word, we store it in our lexicon or our vocabulary network, and that network is constantly changing and growing as we learn more words and more meaning of those words. And then the final domain is use, and the component of use is called pragmatics, and that's just the functional way that we use our language. So the language that we would use in social situations, and pragmatics is really important for us understanding what's appropriate to say in certain situations, but also not so appropriate to say in certain situations. So that's all the domains and their components. And kids can master these skills at different rates, like everything else that kids do. But if we look closely at each of these domains, it helps us identify where we can help them improve their language and communication skills and development. That's all.